Hey guys, it's Brandon here, and today I'm going to be removing my Summit wastegate 60 millimeter and taking it apart, looking inside, changing out the springs, and then making it so I can attach the boost reference lines. Right now you can see that I have a port on the top, on the left and the bottom, and then that's mirrored at the base as well. And I'm gonna try to rotate that whole unit about 90 degrees. That way I can run 90-degree fittings off to run my reference lines over the top. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just remove my wastegate. I have it set up here on the Kangaroos team manifold. So it's just that bolt there and that one there, and then I can just remove it out the bottom. So here's what it looks like there with the wastegate removed. It was just V-banded on each side. So here's what the wastegate itself looks like. It's rather tall, but that's what you get for a 60 millimeter. On the inlet port at the bottom here, there is a little ring that fits inside here that seals against the piston. And this actually can push in, and when you V-band this together to the manifold there, this actually sits flush with this ring. And then on the outlet is just a normal V-band. This wastegate is about 5.5 inches tall. It's rather wide as well at just over 3 inches. And here are the reference ports I was talking about. There's one on the back and on the top and the bottom. And then there's another one on the side. I'm going to be taking this off, switching out some springs, as it does come with multiple spring combinations, and then putting it back on and hopefully being able to turn this 90 degrees so one of these holes faces upwards. So I have the wastegate apart now. It was held on by the 4 5 millimeter Allen bolts. And this is a piston style wastegate. So you have the piston here, then the springs are up here. This is different from a diagram wastegate, and it's supposed to be stronger and I guess more reliable. So I'm pretty happy with that. Here's what the inside of that looks like. It's all oiled up already. I'm gonna be replacing the springs to a different combination, and then putting this on at a 90 degree. So in my kit, I got a red spring, a yellow spring, and a plain spring or a black spring, as well as 2 reference ports, which I won't be using. I'll be using 90 degree fittings, and then 2 block off ports. So what you're supposed to do with this, and it shows you on the diagram here, is I'm gonna run the true dual port style. So you're gonna wanna go from turbo to the bottom of the port, and then when you have a boost controller, you tee off of this line, run it to the bottom, 1 to the boost controller, and then from the top, you run this to your boost controller as well. If you're not running a boost controller, just run from turbo to the bottom port and block off the ports you're not using, as this does have 4. 1 comes blocked off. So running a boost controller, you're gonna just block off the 2 you're not using. Running a no boost controller, you're just gonna block off 1 on the bottom. Your other one's gonna be going to the turbo, and you're gonna leave 1 of these to vent to atmosphere, or both. All right, so after going over the diagram, what I'm going to do, because I want to run very low gate pressure, especially to start out, I'm targeting 5 PSI. Pre-installed, you have a 25 millimeter and the 40 millimeter spring diameters, which total out to 8.3 PSI. And then using different combinations of the other ones, you can go all the way up to 17.4. However, 8.3 is like the close to the max I want to run to start out this year, and it's what I was running last year on the factory holset wastegate. So what I'm going to do is just remove the middle spring here, which is the 4.1 psi. Just leave in the larger diameter, which should be 4.2, and then put it back together that way. Doing this should allow me to run a minimum of 4.2 psi, and then with the boost controller hooked up, anything above that. Whatever spring you have set in your wastegate is the minimum boost pressure you can run. All right, so I just put the wastegate back together. I do want to mention that I've taken other wastegates apart before, the diaphragm style ones, and I've always had to use a vise. This one is actually so large that it wouldn't fit into my vise. So I ended up just taking it apart by hand here. The factory installed springs are soft enough at the 8 psi to where you could just hold it down on the table and then undo each of these slowly. And then, because I was going to a lower boost pressure, it was even easier to reinstall. This just slips right over the top. You can hold it down and start these by hand, and then just keep holding it down when it's flat. And you know, these just get tightened down. I just went like pretty hand tight and then cranked on it at the end. You don't want to strip anything out, as these are just Allens. And I was able to move this housing around because this is a square. So I actually was able to turn it 180 degrees instead of the 90 I was originally going to. This should allow me in the car. It's mounted up like this. I can run 90s off of either the side or the top now and should have plenty of room. I think I'm gonna run off of the top. So I'm gonna remove this plug and then plug up these two holes, put in 90-degree fittings here, and can run my boost lines like that. Also, I just wanted to show that with the 4.2 psi spring, it's pretty easy to compress the piston. So it should be perfect for what I'm trying to accomplish with the low boost. Also, I just want to show, because I'm about to put the caps in, you could see at the top here, you could see the spring in there. And then at the bottom, that's the bottom of the piston. The O-rings are on the piston are actually right above this. They're both right in here. And this doesn't go up far enough to hit the very top. So when you're putting your plugs in, they will come to a natural stop, but you don't have to worry about hurting an O-ring or letting it scrape against anything, as there's nothing there for it to scrape against. All right, so I've put the two plugs in. This is naturally where they stop, with about only a thread or two sticking out of the top one and about 3 on the bottom. This is hand tight, and I cranked on it a little bit. So this is about as far as it's gonna go. I can't get them to turn any farther without possibly damaging anything. So I left my other two open because I'm gonna be using a boost controller. If you're not using a boost controller and just going right off of the reference, this bottom port would just hook up to your turbo and leave this one vented to atmosphere. And I did not use any kind of sealant or Teflon on these. I'm not sure if you have to or not, but I do believe it's airtight when I was doing a little bit of testing here. If I have any issues, this will go in the video. I'm recording all this now before I've used this wastegate, but this video won't come out until I know this method works, especially with just the single spring in there. And once I confirm everything's working, I'll have a later part to this video at the end, just confirming everything and saying that everything's all right. All right, so I was gonna use some 90s I had laying around. However, when I put them in, one was up like this and the other one stopped down like this. So I figured it would just be more cleaner to just use the supplied Summit wastegate nubs here. These barb fittings are for a 1/4 inch tube. So I'm just gonna run both of these. I'll have both coming off. And I think what I'm gonna do is I have some leftover heat wrap that goes around, like I have it around these wires here because these sit up closer to the exhaust manifold. this stuff here. I think I'm gonna try to wrap the tubes in this for a little while, just because they are so close to all the heat being right there. So the wastegate will be back here, the tubes will be running this way to the turbo up there, and my boost controller is also on the top up here. Also, I just want to show, this is as far as these barbs go in. This will clear on the bottom here. It won't hit this. This is as tight as I can get it, and that's as tight as I can get the top one. There's just a couple threads sticking out, and it's about the same for the bottom here. All right, so I got the wastegate reinstalled. You can see I have the two plugs now on the right side here. My two barbs out of the top, and nothing on the side or the bottom anymore. Now I'm gonna be running the lines, and that should be everything for this. I also wanted to mention that the wastegate inlet and outlet are 2-inch pipe. I cover more about this in my exhaust video that should have came out well before this video does. But just in case someone was just watching this and not that, I figured I'd also mention it, as I've talked about pretty much everything else with this wastegate. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is run my boost reference line from the two bungs back here, around over to here, and then up to the turbo, and then I have a boost controller right over here as well. And that should do it for this video. The rest of it will be after I've already used and tested this wastegate on gate and with the boost controller active to see how it performs. All right, so to set up the boost controller, for the dual port design, you're gonna have number 1 active and number 2 active, and you're gonna leave 3 vented to atmosphere. What you're gonna do is you're gonna come from the turbocharger or a boost reference source to port number 1 here, and these are labeled as you can see. And in that line connecting from 1 to the turbocharger, you're gonna have a T, which will go to the bottom port of the wastegate. So I can show you on here. It would be T'd in here. This would go to, there'd be a T in here, and this would go to port 1 on the boost controller. Then you're going to have from the top of the wastegate to port number 2 on the boost controller, and that'll just be a straight line doing that. And then as you can see here again on this diagram, the top of the wastegate would go to a boost controller. And I just want to mention quick that if you have a single port wastegate and you're using a boost controller like this one, it'll still work. What you're going to do is run from the compressor outlet or a boost reference into port number 2. You're going to leave number 1 vented to atmosphere, and number 3 would go to the wastegate. And I'll have a diagram up on screen now of showing how the dual port and the single port should get set up. All right, so I just want to show some of the plumbing here. This line here goes to the top of the wastegate. That goes from port 2 on the boost controller to the top port of the wastegate. You can barely see down in there. It's a little hard to view from the top. And then the bottom port of the wastegate, there's a T that goes in this line here from the turbo to port number 1. I have that coming in the mail. Tomorrow I'll receive it, so I'll be cutting and splicing that in here and then just having the reference go out that way. I do just want to show what I'm doing here because this is such a hot area, you know, with the turbo and the exhaust manifold and obviously the wastegate. I have some heat shrink here that is goes over wire and tube just to protect it from heat. And I already have some of this on some wiring for the oil temperature and pressure sensor. I have some here, and this gets tucked up over next to the exhaust, so that's worked pretty well. And I just figured better do this now than to burn a pipe up down the line and possibly cause a fire. All right, so I just wanted to show now I got the boost controller all set up. Here's the line with the T in it. So this is gonna be boost reference from the turbocharger outlet, which will get T'd into the bottom port of a dual port wastegate. And then this will come to port 1 on the boost controller. And then port 2 on the boost controller will go to the top port of the wastegate. All right guys, so it's kind of hard to see down here, but right now we're looking at the wastegate. I've got it all plumbed in. Here's the wiring right here for the vacuum lines that go to the wastegate. They're all shrouded in the heat wrap, and everything's been working fine. I have the 4.5 PSI spring in there right now. It holds boost super well. Right now I'm running 50% wastegate duty cycle, and it is holding about 6.5 to 6.75 PSI. So it's perfect right where I want to be there. Hopefully by the end of the summer, I'll be able to move up to around 9 PSI, tapping out that spring. And then over the winter, I'll switch them out to go even higher. But I just wanted to give a little overview on that. Everything's been working just fine. Once I start doing more data logs and get more information about everything and just how everything's running like well, I'll start making some videos about the tuning, and if you guys wanted to copy some of that information, feel free. Other than that, that should do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching.